Okay, hey, hi YouTube. Um, Again, I'm gonna continue this week of all relatively serious video. Again, I just woke up again, so I'm gonna keep this like all my videos are pretty much winged. I don't really like think them through before I do them. That's why I pause and so much in them. But yeah, this video is going to be talking about something that's very difficult to explain. It's gonna be so hard to explain this to you guys. So understand if it's not like the best video ever. I just hope it helps a little bit. It's about making the read on your opponent. Now, before I get started, again, on my time tactics video, yeah, I know it's a 5 turn process now, but basically what I was trying to, the point I was trying to get across is that you want to be the person who responds last. You want to be the last guy to attack, or you want to have the last turn, no matter what the situation is. And that means if you're waiting, like say if you're using my tactic of you're facing the clock and you notice that there's 30 seconds left, you want to sit there in your main phase shuffling your hand until 2 seconds are left, then say go. And then with 1 second or two left, your opponent will draw and the time is called, and that way the time gets called on your opponent's turn, and then you're the last to respond. So that's basically what I was trying to say. But I have two new shoutouts to give. One is for Yu-Gi-Oh! Judge Mr. Pro. He asked me for a shout out, and he was pretty adamant about it. He sent me a couple messages. So shout out to him, and shout out to Team Whirlwind. Team Whirlwind, that's Eli. He goes to my local. He's a really cool guy. He's supported me a lot. He asked for one, but I would have given him one whether he asked for it or not. He's in my sub box. I can do annotations now, but I won't because I don't care. But they'll be down there in the info. Um, so yeah, there's that. Keep subbing to doing my contest. I mean, like that's a pretty big prizes. A lot of people have entered, but not as many as I thought might have. So, I mean, a lot of people wondered why I did that. The reason I have you answering the questions is because I'd like you to look at the videos again. I tried to pick videos that a lot of people liked to watch, like people's favorites, where the answers come from. So hopefully you'll enjoy those videos. They kind of like embody what my channel was supposed to be all about. So hope you like those. Anyways, making the read. The first thing is that this is something that really comes with experience. But making the read on a back row is what I'm going to first talk about. Now, here's what a lot of players do and choose, okay? Most players will say that they always want to MST the card closest to the deck. Now, why? That's because most players set the card closest to their deck that they're going to activate the quickest. It's closest to their hand. It's what they think they're going to be playing. That'll be their Mirror Force, a Torrential. Usually, it's a summon stopper. So like a Torrential, a Bottomless, a Solemn, and they'll set the attack blocker closest to their monster. Now that's just force of habit. Now personally, when I go to set things, I shuffle the cards I'm about to set and set them. I don't think. Because the more you think, the easier it is for your opponent to read where it's going to be. Now that's like a way to stop where they're going to put them. Now, you also, in order to make a read, you really have to judge the skill level of your opponent. Now, if your opponent is just an impulsive guy who's like at your local, who's like a guy you can lose to, but he plays like a meta type deck, but he's not really like he's not like a big, so he's going to do what most people would do. He's going to play the average way most people play. Now, you have to know how good your opponent is before you do that. I like to consider there to be 3 levels of people. There's the people who are stink. There are people who are good, and there are people who are really good. They're like the pros. But now, when I say really good, that's they know their plays. They know that you're going to try to read them. They know how to read you. They know most of the strategies. They're not going to make a whole lot of mistakes. Though everyone makes a mistake every now and then. They're almost perfect. I mean, I'm definitely not perfect. No one is. No one. Not even like Jerry Wang. He's not perfect. He's very close to it as far as making smart, good plays. But also, think through your moves. Don't just do things. Think about it. But anyways, the three levels of people. I think that the not so good players tend to beat the really good players. The really good players tend to beat the good players, and the good players tend to beat the really bad players. Now, the reason that is it's because of reads. Good players will try to make reads, but they're not always right. Pro players will try to make reads, and they're usually right on good players. Now, if they do it to someone who's not so good, they're usually going to lose because they don't do things in a way that most people would do. For example, last format they would have set two bottomless. You don't expect that. Like, you don't. Usually, when a good player would set two back rows, if they set two or three, they're going to set a summon stopper, a back row buster, and an attack stopper. So let's say they set a D prison, a bottomless, and an MST, or a dust tornado, or a trap stun or something. Now, you don't expect them to have set torrential, bottomless, because who does that? But there you go. So another thing to pay attention to outside of like where they set their cards, is like on an impulsive player. If you see them struggling as to whether they want to set an extra card or not, you have to think about their skill level. They could be if they're struggling as to whether to set another card, they're usually thinking about whether or not to set a bluff or a card that isn't really relevant. For example, if you're up against gadgets and they set a card, and then they think about a card, but you notice that they're not intentionally thinking about it. They're not trying to bluff you. I try to bluff people sometimes on that, but if I think about a card, usually I'm like trying to set like torrential. That's the card I'm thinking about. And one of the first sets I set was like limiter. But usually if someone stutters to think about whether they want to set a card or not, it's a smashing ground or a limiter or a cold wave or something. And in this format, it's not so bad to set like bluffs all the time or like a useless pot of avarice at the time because it takes the odds of them hitting your solemn down. It decreases the probability of them doing that. But if you sit there and think about it, they're not going to be worried about that card. It's usually the trap stuns, the MSTs, etc. Now, it's really easy to read Gores. That's probably the easiest card to read. If you're up against a deck that clearly plays a lot of back rows, and they're not playing a lot of them, like if they're just one at a timing, kind of, they got Gores. Like if they play a back row removal instead or something, it's pretty clear. I mean, in this format, it's stupid to not set a bunch of cards, because what are you afraid of? Cold Wave, Debris Dragon? And in which case you can already read it because you know what's in the graveyard. They can't just Black Rose you out of nowhere. They have to, have the setup. They can't just willy-nilly throw it in there, So, when that's coming. People are like, oh, don't get the Gold Wave Debris Dragon. It's like, okay, well, you should be pretty clear to see, oh, there's a Card Trooper in his graveyard. Oh, there's a Dandelion in his graveyard. He can maybe do this play. But Dandelions just don't float into the graveyard, You have to have seen it go there somehow. And they can't do that on the first turn usually without, like, the Quick Draw, send it, bring out Quick Draw, Synchro, and then Debris Dragon. And now I have to, and in which case they're not going to blow up the field. They're going to probably make Stardust Dragon and be like, haha, now you're dealing with Drill Warrior Stardust Dragon. Fuck you. But, I mean, they might debris. They might get rid of the drill, debris the field, and then bring it back and stuff. That's good, but, I mean, still, the odds of that happening are very low. People who are like, oh, but you might get Trap Stun Gladiator Beasted and the Geyserus and this and the that. And I'm like, well, I mean, just don't let that happen. Like, Trap Stun, yeah, I'm pretty sure this card called Book of Moon is a pretty major card right now. And, like, the odds of them doing that are totally reliant on them having another GB on the field already. It's not exactly like they can Rescue Cat in. And yeah, they can Prisma into it, but, I mean, your odds of that are pretty low. And then you have your books, and you can book that stuff down. And Trap Stun, you can tell when they have Trap Stun, MST, etc. because you wait on the game state to make the read. For example, if you had summoned if you special summon a Cyber Dragon, for example, and they don't play bottomless, they probably don't have bottomless. In fact, if you think that they have a summon stopper, it's probably Torrential. So you might not want to summon another guy. Getting greedy is the #1 way to fail. So if you summon something like a Cyber Dragon and you want to make a double summon, make sure that you're pretty sure they don't have Torrential or something, or a way to stop Torrential, and make sure your other summons something that isn't a minus. For example, if you special a Cyber Dragon, it's okay to summon like a Sangan, a Card Trooper. Well, I mean, make sure you're not against someone who plays Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. And you can read if they play Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon or not, if you're playing machines. Because, for example, if you're up against Quick Draw, they are not playing Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon almost certainly. Because that deck is so thick with Synchros, you know, they don't have space. If you're playing against X-Sabers, they also don't play that card. Now, if you're playing against Gladiators, they certainly play that card. So, or against machines. You know, you gotta know this stuff. But if you're up against Quick Draw, odds are they can't fit that card. Because they have to pack it, especially if they're playing Quick Draw in the plants. Now, if they're playing non-Quick Draw plants, they might. But if you see Quick Draw in there, you know for sure. Especially X-Sabers. And they will be big this format. And Infernities. They will not be playing Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon because, you know, they can't fit it. They have to have those synchro options. And without, you know, if you're up against a deck that synchros a lot, they obviously won't have it. But if you're up against, like, Monarchs, they probably will have that in there. Also, another read, it's really easy to make, the face downs. It's easy to tell if your opponent has a Raikou down. It's trying to decide whether they have, say you're up against plants, whether they have a Raikou, a Hamster, Dandelion, a Sangan, Pineapple nowadays. What do they have? Now it's really easy to tell because if they have a Hamster, they'll commit. They'll commit to the field. Generally speaking, in this format, you just don't want to attack face downs. But if you notice they have a Raikou, they'll be very sparse on the field. They'll set maybe a back row, and then your Raikou. They'll T-set. In this format, most people don't T-set. Now, if they have a Hamster, they'll probably set 2 back rows or something, you know. Or if they have a Dandelion, they'll most certainly set 2 back rows, you know, if they have them. Because, you know, Dandelion's a card where they're not going to be able to make a Gores play. There's not a whole lot there. Now, an easy way to tell if your opponent has Gores is if they set 1 back row go, and then they dust shoot you. You're like, oh, okay. I wonder what you have. So, but anyway, surprise card this format, Stragodia. I think that card's going to be good. It's going to be surprised. But anyways, so yeah, it's really not that hard to tell. The Raikou, they're going to have a really sparse field. It's pretty easy to just summon Sang and attack into that. Don't mess up though. If they set 2 back rows and you smack into a Hamster with your like Sangan or something, that's bad news bears, because they're definitely going to go right into Naturia Beast off a Spore. So you don't want that news. I mean, people think Naturia Beast is going to be super dominant, but I don't think so, because all these decks are playing Solemn Warning, which is like one of the best cards in the game right now. I mean, I play 3. Some people play 2. I don't really care about the life thing. I like the fact that I can knock out Gores, knock out Hamster, knock out anything. It's too good. So yeah, there's that. Rocking us into a Raikou with your Sangan is just game changing. You want to do that. You never want to really attack Spore, but I mean, you kind of have to let them bring out the Light and Dark Strand, because usually it's a case of like you're either gonna let them do that, or they're gonna kill you with something else. They're gonna tribute for Caius, and that's just as good. They're going to summon Lone Fire and screw you, so you might as well attack the Dandelion at that point. I'd rather not attack Hamster though, unless you have a way to kill it. Like, Card Trooper is the stellar way to deal with Hamster, but not a lot of decks play that. Let me see how much time's left on this video. Alright, I don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to wrap this up. Basically, with making the read, you got to know what you're playing against, what kind of player you're playing against, how impulsive they are, and how the field's been playing.